Could the Philadelphia Eagles be in a position in the 2024 offseason that they were in the offseason prior, in losing both of their coordinators, Brian Johnson, the offensive coordinator, and Sean Desai, defensive coordinator? That's what we're talking about on today's Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. because Johnson and Desai have been named by NFL.com as two of the top young head coaching candidates in the National Football League. And a good opportunity for us to lay the foundation is by taking a look at the potential head coach openings that could be available for Johnson and Desai and other candidates going into the offseason. Chicago Bears with Matt Eberflus, if they don't move on, I would be shocked. I think that Brandon Staley is a stiff, and you have to get Justin Herbert some help. He could be out with the Los Angeles Chargers. Frank Reich might be given some wiggle room because he's in year one of a rebuild, but David Tepper is a very aggressive owner, former Wall Street guy. Ron Rivera is stale at this point. Commanders could be looking for a new head coach. New Orleans Saints with Dennis Allen. I think that Dennis Allen is more of a defensive coordinator and not a head coach. Las Vegas Raiders, they're going to go through an interview process most likely with Antonio Pierce as the interim, but I think the early indications are that AP might be able to stay in the desert long term. Atlanta Falcons with Arthur Smith. Los Angeles Rams and Sean McVay if McVay decides to retire. Back-to-back pretty poor seasons for the Rams coming off that Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Will the Tennessee Titans move on from Mike Vrabel, or could he replace Bill Belichick? And Bill Belichick is on that list as well. It's crazy how quickly the league seems to have passed Bill Belichick by, but that's what happens when you're stubborn. Now, I think it's also important to take a look at how the Eagles' offense has been faring under Brian Johnson and how the Eagles' defense has been performing under Sean Desai. A lot of people have been fed up. They've been frustrated with Brian Johnson, but sneakily over the last month, this Eagles offense has found a groove. Now, they're not running the football successfully, but Jalen Hurts, because of that knee injury, has been forced to win from the pocket, and he's really made strides as a passer in this league. And the Eagles offense as a whole this year, 8-1, going into Monday Night Football against the Kansas City Chiefs, they're number 3 in points per game, 28 per. They're number 5 in yards per game at nearly 377. They are 11th in yards per play. Third down percentage, 50%. That's number 1 in the league because Hurts has been so good throwing from in between the tackles, but making plays with his legs and throwing the ball downfield. And then 12th in red zone percentage. And then you look at this Eagles defense. Statistically, the common football fan would say, Sean Desai doesn't deserve a head coaching job. Look at those rankings. 18th in points per game, 14th in yards per game, 19th in yards per play, 25th in third down percentage, 26th in red zone percentage. But I'm going to explain why Sean Desai might be worthy of a head coaching interview. For the Eagles offense here, Brian Johnson came under fire, had a lot of people in the comments section, and people are still asking me if the Eagles should fire Brian Johnson. They've made some really critical adjustments, and I think one of the telltale signs of quality coaching is seeing the development of your franchise quarterback. Hurts was pretty raw coming out of Oklahoma and Alabama, right? Every year he's gotten progressively better. He's now in his 3rd season and working alongside Brian Johnson, first as his quarterback's coach, now as his offensive coordinator, and he deserves some credit here. As for Sean Desai, the defensive numbers are not great, but Desai has done what high-level coaches do. He has made some great in-game adjustments where Philadelphia might struggle in the first half defensively. They might struggle for the first 3 quarters. But what do the greats do? They make those adjustments, and they play better toward the tail end of the ball game. And that's what this Eagles defense has been able to do because of this bright mind right here. So this list coming from Tom Pelissero, compiling just a gathering of some of the top young head coaching candidates in the NFL. And you can check out this list on NFL.com, as I said a little bit earlier. And Pelissero does this every year. He talks to coaches, executives, people inside the league, and his sources kind of help him compile this list. Here's what he had to say about Sean Desai first, and then we'll get to Brian Johnson a little bit later. Desai, An 11th-year NFL coaching veteran took over the Eagles' defense after Jonathan Gannon left for Arizona following Super Bowl 57 in February. Moving parts up the middle and in the secondary have created challenges this year, but the unit should continue to improve as the campaign plays out. Desai has learned from some of football's best defensive minds, including Vic Fangio, as well as Pete Carroll, as well as different types of leaders, equipping him to understand what it takes to win from an organizational perspective. 4 other teams interviewed Desai for defensive coordinator jobs this year before he landed in Philadelphia this past year. So he already has an in with a couple of organizations. He has interviewing experience as well, which helps his candidacy as it does in football and in life as well in corporate America. So what would be the bigger loss, and who would be the bigger loss? I want to pop this up as our poll question. This will be our pinned comment as well, so make sure you go on down in the comment section. Fire up whatever you have on your mind. SD for Sean Desai, BJ for Brian Johnson. Don't be immature with BJ. Sponsored by Game Time. That is how our show is made possible today. If you're looking for last-minute tickets, Game Time is the only app that you should be using. It's a free download, and if you use the code EaglesChat, you get $20 off your purchase. I love the user experience. I love that this app is free. I love that I can go to an Eagles game, Sixers game, Phillies game, Flyers game, college basketball at the Pelissero or at the Wells Fargo Center when Villanova is playing. But I'm also a guy who loves live music, and I love going to comedy shows. And you can find all of these tickets on the Game Time app. If you're looking to go to Eagles-Bills at Lincoln Financial Field in Week 11, still tickets available right here. If you're looking to go to an Eagles road game, you can do that as well. A couple of different views in which you can see the price point for where you'll be sitting, but also the view from your seats as well. If you use that code, EaglesChat, Eagles games, concerts, more, theater events. Game Time is the only app that you should download. Code EaglesChat. That link is available for you in the comment section and in the description of this video. So we just spent a couple of moments talking about Sean Desai. Let's spend some more time talking about Brian Johnson. And Tom Pelissero with the write-up of Brian Johnson as well, a prolific college quarterback at Utah and cover model for the NCAA Football 2010 video game. Johnson got his start in coaching at his alma mater and became the youngest FBS offensive coordinator at 24 years old. He has mentored the likes of Dak Prescott, Kyle Trask, and now Jalen Hurts, whose dad, Averion, coincidentally coached Johnson, and is now in his first season as an NFL offensive coordinator. 3 other teams also pursued him for coordinator jobs this past offseason before he opted to stay in Philadelphia. And he was really the guy all along who is going to be able to take over for Shane Steichen. The familiarity there, I think, has helped him out, and it's helped Philadelphia out to a certain degree. And with organizations looking for head coaches, the league is and has been moving in an offensive direction. And I think a big reason for this is this. Oftentimes when a team is looking for a new head coach, they need a quarterback, right? And if you can pair up a young quarterback with a young offensive mind, I believe that that is the start of something special potentially if you hit on that QB and you hit on that quarterback. Now, there are some defensive minds that I've really liked as head coaching hires. D'Amico Ryans. But he comes from the Niners and brought a lot of coaches from the Niners with him. They've installed that offensive system, and C.J. Stroud has had a lot of success. Sean Desai can land a head coaching interview, but I'd put the odds in the favor of Brian Johnson leaving before Sean Desai because defensive coaches are not always sought after. And with Brian Johnson, he's now been with Jalen Hurts from 2021 to 2022 to 2023. And during an interview, you know how you go into a job interview and you're always going to try to list your strengths, why you are a special candidate and why that company should hire you. One of the key elements that Brian Johnson has on his side, he could say, look, I've really helped mentor and develop and coach up Jalen Hurts. From 2021 to 2023, he's gone from being a quarterback who fans weren't sure and the organization wasn't sure if he was going to be the franchise guy to being a top 5 quarterback in this league. Completion percentage has gone up from 2020 to 2023, from 52% to nearly 69%. And when he became the full-time starter in 2021, 16 touchdowns, 9 picks. That jumped up to 22 touchdowns throwing and 6 picks last year, runner-up in MVP voting. And this year, completion percentage is up. 15 touchdowns, 8 picks. He's turned the football over a little bit more, but the last few games, 6 touchdowns, no picks. Average yards per attempt down a tick to 7.7, but Jalen Hurts has also thrown for a lot of yards this year. So why teams might like Brian Johnson, he played quarterback. He sees the game through the eyes of a quarterback. He's developed QBs in the past. Dak Prescott at Mississippi State, Kyle Trask at Florida, Jalen Hurts at the NFL level, has experience as a play caller, and he's a really good developer of talent, right? And a good offensive mind. They're also running a current modern-day offensive system. Why teams might like Sean Desai, he is a Vic Fangio disciple and a Pete Carroll disciple. You always want some of your offensive or defensive minds to be molded by some pillars in the NFL architecture history. He has the ability to make adjustments. He, too, has play calling experience, and he's had to adjust to a lot of different lineup changes. The Eagles have not started back-to-back games with the same starting secondary outside of one game all year. He's had to deal with a defensive line rotation because they're so deep. He's had to deal with a lot of injuries at that linebacker spot, a lot of different cornerback combinations, and a lot of injuries to secondary. When you can adjust to that, that's pretty special. That's a sign of a good coach. And for Nick Sirianni, he's now in his 3rd year as a Philadelphia Eagles head coach. One of the best starts to a coaching career in the history of football as far as wins and losses. But how about the coaching tree that he's starting to put together? Jonathan Gannon has surprised a lot of people with the Arizona Cardinals. They've been really competitive this year with the bottom basement roster. Shane Steichen has the Colts in a position to potentially make the playoffs with Gardner Minshew as his starting quarterback and not that talented of a roster. So both Gannon and Steichen have had good rookie coaching seasons, and Nick Sirianni is to credit for finding them and hiring them as coordinators. And now you have Brian Johnson and Sean Desai, who could be in line to become a head coach elsewhere as well. Also important to note is the compensatory pick rule if both Johnson and Desai get hired, because they would be minority hires. According to a rule for the NFL, clubs that develop a diverse employee who is hired in the position of primary football executive or head coach with another team will receive a draft choice compensation in the form of a compensatory draft pick in the 3rd round in each of the next 2 drafts. So for an Eagles team led by Howie Roseman, who's been in his bag at compiling talent in the NFL draft, you could potentially get a couple of 3rd-round picks if Johnson and Desai do get hired elsewhere as a head coach. Before we hop on out of here, contact me. You want to give me some feedback about the show? You want to say what's up? I'm also into health, wealth, and fitness. X at Chase_Senior. Instagram at Chase_Senior. You can shoot me an email, chase@chatsports.com as well.